Before we dive into this story, make sure to subscribe to the channel. There's a lot more coming your way. And tell me in the comments, where are you listening from? I want to know how far this story has reached. No more waiting. Let's get into the video.
The silence of space was not empty. It was heavy, like standing in a cathedral that had long forgotten the sound of prayers. Ethan Cross stood at the edge of a viewing deck aboard Visar 9, the outermost colonial station on the Veyron frontier. Through the reinforced hex glass, he watched twin stars bleed light into the void, their brilliance casting a cold reflection across the station's scarred hull. Ethan was the only human assigned to Visar 9, a diplomatic envoy with no one left to talk to. Humanity had retreated to the inner sectors years ago, but he stayed. For what? Maybe the silence suited him. Maybe it was better than Earth's noise. Visar 9 wasn't beautiful. It was rusting. Lights flickered. Doors hissed and groaned. The gravity stabilizers lagged half a second behind his step. It felt haunted, a drifting corpse of metal still clinging to purpose. But it was here that he was to represent humanity, or whatever was left of it in this quadrant. He adjusted his collar, stepping into the central atrium. Aliens of all forms milled about, furred, scaled, luminous. They spoke in chimes, clicks, guttural drones. The Veyron ruled this region. Tall, armored beings with bioluminescent veins and markings across their chests that pulsed like slow heartbeats. That's when he saw her. Solara. She stood like a living monument, a towering Veyron diplomat with silver-blue skin, her armor shimmering like volcanic glass. Her vital mark, a radiant, pulsating pattern across her clavicle, glowed with the rhythm of her breath. Ethan didn't mean to stare, but the biological symmetry was hypnotic. Their eyes met. She approached. Human. She spoke in perfect standard. You watch as if you've never seen light before. Ethan smiled politely. Forgive me. Your vital mark is stunning. It reminds me of ancient human art. Fractals and stained glass. The conversation paused, and then the entire chamber fell into silence. Solara tilted her head slowly, and with a faint, almost imperceptible nod, touched her fingers to her vital mark. You honor me, she said quietly, and accept. Accept what? Ethan asked. Around him, the aliens began to murmur, and Solara's voice came again, low, firm, ceremonial. You have just proposed a union. Ethan froze. A union. The phrase echoed through the chamber like a pulse through the floor. Whispers in alien tongues rippled outward. A dozen species turned toward him, their eyes glowing, twitching, shifting. Some murmured in excitement, others recoiled in confusion, but all of them looked at him. Solara stood unflinching, her silver-blue form regal, her vital mark now glowing brighter, a deep violet hue, the Veyron color of sacred bonds. I believe there's been a misunderstanding, Ethan stammered, holding up his hands in a universal gesture of peace. I only meant to compliment. You touched upon sacred flame, she said, stepping forward, her expression unreadable. In Veyron culture, to speak admiration of one's vital mark, without challenge or mockery, is to acknowledge its call. To do so publicly is to bind. A cold spike of adrenaline struck Ethan's spine. Around them, an attendant Veyron blew a low, resonant tone through a throat organ. Others gathered, their crystalline armor catching the glow of the central atrium. The scent of ozone and crushed minerals thickened the air. I didn't mean to. I had no knowledge. Solara raised her hand to silence him. Ignorance does not negate truth. It only changes the path forward. She turned to the assembly. The human has spoken the words. The mark has responded, and I accept. A chorus of sounds erupted. Not applause, but ritual confirmation. Ethan's ears rang. What does that mean? He whispered. Solara faced him again. Softer now. It means you are no longer a visitor. Ethan Cross. You are now bound to the lineage of House Veyron. You are mine, and I am yours. If you withdraw, it must be through the rite of fracture. Rite of what now? A new voice cut through the tension, sharp, metallic. He will not withdraw, but neither will he stay untested. The crowd parted. A towering Veyron male, draped in obsidian armor and ceremonial scars, approached. His voice carried weight like gravity. I am Draven, first of House Morik, and I challenge the Union. Solara's eyes narrowed. Ethan blinked, stunned. Challenge? As in, debate? Draven's teeth flashed. No, human. As in combat. Ethan's mouth opened, then closed, then opened again. Combat, he repeated, his voice cracking slightly. The air in the atrium thickened. Spectators formed a wide circle around them, giving Draven space as he stepped forward with the poise of a predator. His armored boots clicked against the metal floor with rhythmic menace. Yes, Draven said, his tone sharp as plasma steel. You have made a claim. I contest it. Hold, Solara snapped, her voice like thunder. Draven, this is not a blood claim. The human is unaware of our customs. That is irrelevant, Draven spat. He spoke the vow, and you accepted. If he cannot defend his words, then he does not deserve you. Solara turned to Ethan, her expression caught between fury and worry. You don't have to do this. There are alternatives. But if you walk away without facing the right, the shame falls not only on you, but on me. Ethan looked around. Every eye was on him, some filled with curiosity, others with hunger. Draven's figure loomed, a warrior forged for battle, his carapace adorned with ceremonial etchings that shimmered like cut obsidian. Ethan took a breath. The recycled air of Visar 9 was warm and stale, tinged with copper and oil. He could hear his own heartbeat echoing in his ears. I'm not a soldier, he said quietly. I'm just an envoy. But you are human, Solara replied. That word, human, seemed to carry weight here. He felt it ripple through the crowd. The Veyran warriors shifted. The smaller races whispered among themselves. Fine, Ethan muttered. If there's a way to undo this mess, I'll face it. Draven grinned, exposing serrated ivory teeth. Then let it be done. The atrium's lights dimmed. From the outer chamber, 4 priests entered, robed in woven silver mesh, their faces hidden by helmed visors. One carried the ceremonial stone of consent. Another held a spear of initiation. Tomorrow, the priest announced, at the Colosseum, the human Ethan Cross shall face Kaor, champion of House Morik, in the trial of binding. Wait, Ethan blinked. Kaor, I thought I was fighting you. Draven's smile widened. Oh no, little human, I'm not the one who will kill you. The Colosseum loomed like the ribcage of a dead god. Ethan stood at the center of the preparation chamber, staring at his reflection in a cracked metal panel. Sweat trickled down the back of his neck. He adjusted the armored vest they'd given him. Not standard-issue human gear, but a hybrid Veyran design, etched with unfamiliar sigils. It felt too tight in some places, too loose in others, like it wasn't meant for someone with soft bones and an easily crushable spine. Kaor, on the other hand, was bred for war. Through the arched window of the chamber, Ethan could see him across the Colosseum floor, a mountain of muscle and armor, easily 3 meters tall. His forearms stretched as he trained, swinging a double-bladed halberd in slow circular arcs that carved the air. Every movement was deliberate, calculated, like a beast rehearsing the death of its prey. Still alive, I see, came a voice behind Ethan. He turned. It was Mur, the station's chief technician. A spindly alien with bioluminescent skin and 6 mechanical limbs grafted to his back. Mur had been one of the few non-Veyran who hadn't avoided Ethan after the incident. In fact, he seemed mildly entertained by the whole mess. You came to wish me luck, Ethan asked. Mur chittered. I came to remind you you're probably going to die. But if you don't, maybe I can help with that. He extended one of his spidery limbs, revealing a small device, a pulsing, cube-shaped module no larger than Ethan's palm. What is it? Ethan asked. An equilibrium field generator. Your opponent is enhanced. Bones like carbon steel. Muscles reinforced with plasma-fed sinew. You are... not... Mur gave him a half-smile. This won't level the playing field, but it might stop him from splattering you across the walls in the first 10 seconds. Ethan took it, feeling the subtle vibration in the core of the device. Why help me? Mir leaned in. Because if you survive, it changes everything. The Veyran have ruled by strength alone. But if you, a fragile, awkward, sarcastic little human, defeat their champion using only wit and will, it forces them to question everything. A gong echoed through the chamber. It's time, Mir said. Try not to die, Ambassador. Ethan stepped into the tunnel. The Colosseum roared. The Colosseum was alive, not just with bodies, but with tension. Towering stands of metal and bone arced high above the arena floor, packed with beings from across the quadrant. Some floated, others clicked mandibles or thrummed membranes, but all had come for one reason: to watch the human die. Ethan stepped out into the harsh, blinding light of Visar 9's twin suns. Dust kicked up around his boots. The ground vibrated with chants, guttural and rhythmic, like war drums made of voices. Across from him, Kaur waited at the opposite gate. He looked like a myth, skin like obsidian, forearms armored in crimson plates, a weapon in each hand. One was a glaive, another a warhammer, and the other two he held bare, fists wrapped in plasma coils. His expression was blank, unreadable, a beast sculpted for a single purpose: to end things. Ethan swallowed. His hands trembled around the equilibrium device Mir had given him, now strapped discreetly under his chest plate. A tactical edge, not a miracle. From the sky platform, Solara rose, cloaked in ceremonial robes. Her voice echoed, amplified by the chamber's resonance systems. By Veyron right, this challenge has been accepted. One bloodline seeks to test the truth of union. The other seeks to deny it. Let trial by combat begin. Kaur stepped forward slowly, weapon in hand. I do not hate you, human, he said, voice like grinding stone. But you are not worthy of her. I'm starting to agree with you, Ethan muttered. But I've got a reputation now. They circled. Ethan's breath was shallow, his heart hammering. He could feel the balance field activate, subtly adjusting gravity around his body, helping his footing. But even with it, he was still flesh. Kaur was something else. The first strike came fast, a blur of motion. Ethan barely dodged the glaive, tumbling into the dust. He rolled, pain shooting through his ribs. The crowd gasped. I offer you mercy, Kaur said. Stay down. Ethan stood. No. The Veyron paused. There was something in Ethan's voice that gave him pause. Not bravado, but resolve. That quiet, suicidal thing humans called stubbornness. And somewhere, buried under sweat and adrenaline, Ethan remembered what Solara had told him in confidence the night before. Our species is dying, Ethan. The unions are failing. No offspring in 3 generations. But yours, your DNA may hold the key. You're not just fighting for yourself. You're fighting for our future. Kaur's next strike came harder, faster, a blur of metal and fury. Ethan ducked low, the hammer skimming just above his skull, with a sound like thunder cracking in his ears. The impact against the arena wall shattered stone and sent shockwaves into the dust. Ethan staggered. His breath came in ragged pulls. The equilibrium field hummed, compensating, but not enough. Not nearly enough. You fight to survive, Kaur said, advancing, but you do not understand the stakes. Ethan raised his fists, blood trickling from his lip. Try me. From the viewing platform above, Draven leaned forward in his seat, eyes narrowed. He spoke into a private communicator embedded in his wrist. Trigger the destabilizers. Below the arena, deep inside the engineering grid, a hidden system activated. The field around Ethan fluctuated. A pulse, a glitch. His knees buckled, and he collapsed to the dust. In the crowd, Mir's eyes widened. They sabotaged it, he whispered. Meanwhile, Solara watched in silence, but her fingers gripped the edge of the platform, white with tension. She knew. She had suspected Draven would play dirty, but not this soon, not this boldly. Back in the arena, Kaur paused. He noticed Ethan's sudden falter. What trick is this? He asked, uncertain. Ethan groaned, rising to one knee. That wasn't me. Kaur stepped back. You're injured. No, Ethan said, a realization clicking into place. I was cheated. From the shadows beneath the stands, Mir scurried into motion, fingers flying across his handheld interface. He accessed the station's systems, bypassed corrupted protocols, rewrote diagnostic codes. Sparks lit up the wall panels as he forced a field reset. The stabilizer surged back online. Ethan stood, lightheaded but balanced. Draven cursed from above, slamming a fist into the armrest. He turned to a subordinate. "Release the second protocol." But before the command could be executed, a voice echoed through the arena. It was Kaor. "I will not fight a broken man." The crowd quieted. "I was bred to protect the honor of Veyron," Kaor said, turning to the spectators. "But this is not honor. This is manipulation. I smell the corruption of the old houses." He turned to Ethan. "Stand. If you are to be tested, you will be tested fairly." Solara stepped forward, voice steady. "Let the trial continue." And for the first time, the crowd began to shift, not against Ethan, but against Draven. The moment the equilibrium field snapped back into place, Ethan felt the difference. The nausea faded. The weight lifted from his limbs. He stood upright, barely, and gave Kaor a nod of silent thanks. Around them, the arena buzzed with a new kind of energy. Not bloodlust, not spectacle, something else. Curiosity. Ethan turned his back slightly, a dangerous move, but necessary, and tapped the small transmitter clipped to his collar. "Myr," he whispered, "whatever you did, thanks." Myr's voice crackled through the implant. "You've got 5 minutes before they try something worse. You need to finish this. Fast." "I don't do fast," Ethan muttered. "Then do clever," Myr said. "Try being human." Ethan blinked, then smiled. Across from him, Kaor raised his halberd again, not in rage this time, but in ritual. The fight was back on, but the air had changed. Ethan saw it now. The way Kaor moved, the calculated rhythm of his strikes, the inherited forms of a species that had ritualized combat into art. Ethan didn't have power. He didn't have 4 arms. He didn't have armor worth the name, but he had pattern recognition. Kaor's style followed a predictable tempo. Opening strikes, step, feint, double blade rotation, recover, over and over. It was beautiful and mechanical, which meant it could be broken. Ethan didn't attack. He lured. He dodged. He forced Kaor to repeat the rhythm, again and again, studying the arc of every blade. 2 minutes passed. 3. The crowd grew restless. Then Ethan made his move. As Kaor stepped into the third sequence, Ethan darted forward, ducked under the rotation, and drove his shoulder into the champion's torso. Kaor staggered, surprised more than hurt. Ethan used that fraction of a second to slip behind him and activate the plasma tether embedded in the gauntlet Myr had rigged. A flash of light. The tether fired, wrapped around Kaor's weapon, and yanked it free. The halberd clattered to the floor. The crowd gasped. Kaor turned, wide-eyed. Ethan stood firm, fists clenched, breathing hard. "You're stronger, faster, but you're fighting by rules. I'm not." Kaor looked down at the empty space in his hand, then up at Ethan, and laughed. Deep, genuine. "For the first time in decades," Kaor said, "I have learned something." From the stands, Draven stood, furious. This mockery ends now. But it was too late. The crowd had turned, and Ethan Cross, human, tired, and aching, stood undefeated. Draven descended from the observation platform with fury in every step. The crowd parted as he moved through them, his ceremonial cloak discarded, revealing a full battle harness beneath, illegal in the trial, reinforced with dark steel and etched with high-status runes. This was no longer ceremony, it was a coup. Ethan barely had time to process what was happening before the arena's defensive wards dropped with a flash of red. Kaor turned, roaring, "This is sacred ground, Draven!" "And it has been polluted," Draven barked, striding into the center of the arena, "by alien customs, false unions, and humans." His voice echoed with venom. "This entire farce is a corruption of tradition. I will cleanse it, with blood." Without warning, he lunged. Kaor moved to intercept, but too late. Draven was already upon Ethan, his gauntlet flaring with energy. A blow landed hard, sending Ethan sprawling across the dust in a spray of blood and grit. The crowd shrieked, not in excitement, but outrage. Solara stood, her voice amplified by command protocols. "You violate sacred right. Withdraw, Draven, or be condemned by the 5 houses." "You have no houses," Draven spat. "Only dying bloodlines and failed unions. The old ways are done. Strength alone decides." Ethan rose, staggered. His vision swam. Kaor, he called weakly. You with me? Kaor turned and made his choice. He stood between Ethan and Draven, unarmed but unyielding. This trial is over. The challenger was bested. The rite is closed. You strike now not as a rival, but as a traitor, Draven snarled. Then die with the human, he charged. But Kaor was ready. In one smooth motion, Kaor ducked low, scooped the discarded halberd from the sand, and launched into a counterspin that slammed the blunt end into Draven's ribs. The warlord stumbled, but retaliated with a blade from his gauntlet, slashing Kaor's side. Blood sprayed. Ethan, shaking, reached into his armor. Myr's last gift, a thermal detonation patch, low yield but magnetic. He slapped it against Draven's back as the warlord rushed past him. Beep, blink, boom. The explosion sent Draven flying, armor sparking, cloak ablaze. He landed hard, unmoving. Silence fell. Then, cheers. Kaor dropped to one knee. Honor is preserved. Solara entered the arena, walking straight to Ethan. She took his hand, bloodied, trembling, and raised it for all to see. Let this union stand. And the crowd roared, not for the victor, but for the new beginning. The Colosseum still echoed with the aftershocks of what had just transpired. Kaor knelt, blood staining the metallic sands beneath him, his massive frame heaving with slow, deliberate breaths. Despite the wound on his side, he showed no pain, only solemnity. He had broken the most sacred law of Veyran hierarchy. He had turned against his own house. Ethan staggered toward him. You okay? He rasped. Kaor looked up, eyes heavy with a strange kind of pride. I will carry the scar as a badge, if it means truth is restored. Solara knelt beside them both, placing one hand on Kaor's shoulder, the other gently at Ethan's elbow. You honored the right, she said softly to Ethan, and you uncovered the lie. Draven's plan would have doomed us all. Across the arena, Veyran officials began to descend, nobles, elders, even the cloaked archivists of the Central Gene Vault. Their arrival wasn't theatrical. It was desperate. One of them, a withered female named Archon Thaya, spoke to Solara in low tones. Ethan couldn't understand the words, but the tone was unmistakable. Urgency and fear. What is it? He asked. Solara rose slowly. They know the truth now. What I told you. It's worse than we feared. She turned to the gathered audience, her voice no longer amplified by systems, but stronger because of what she had done. For 3 generations, our unions have produced no viable offspring. Our genome collapses under the weight of its own perfection. We evolved to be strong, beautiful, and ultimately infertile. Gasps rippled through the crowd. But now, she continued, a new bond has been formed, not by tradition, not by selection, but by chance. A union with a human. She took Ethan's hand again, firm, unwavering. My scientists confirmed it this morning. Our genetic structures are compatible. With human resilience, the Veyran may yet endure. Ethan blinked. Wait, are you saying? Yes, she whispered. We are already creating life. The silence that followed wasn't disbelief. It was awe. Kaor stood slowly, wincing. Then let this be the first generation born not of conquest, but connection. Let it be known that I, champion of House Morik, stand with the human. Cheers rose again, louder this time. Not out of spectacle, out of hope. For the first time in centuries, the Veyran had something they thought lost forever. A future. One cycle later, the banners of House Veyran and the emblem of Earth flew side by side, unfurled not in war, but in ceremony. Ethan Cross stood aboard the diplomatic cruiser, Unity's Flame, dressed in dark ceremonial robes lined with silver. His posture was straighter now, his eyes more certain. The awkward envoy who had once complimented the wrong alien feature was now the first human in history to be bonded into an alien royal line. Beside him stood Solara, her vital mark glowing with a soft azure light, calm, full, content. No longer a political icon fighting extinction. Now, a symbol of rebirth. And within her, life stirred. They had confirmed it weeks ago. A hybrid embryo, human and Veyran, stable, strong, growing. It wasn't just a child, it was proof. Proof that two species could share more than conflict, more than curiosity. They could share blood, future, home. The Unity's flame glided past Visser 9, now being refitted as an interspecies research and diplomatic hub. Draven had been exiled, stripped of his title, condemned by the Five Houses for sabotage and treason. Kaor, once a weapon, had been named High Protector, tasked with ensuring that no future trial would be manipulated again. Ethan stared out the viewport as stars drifted by like fireflies across ink. They looked different now, he said aloud. Solara, standing at his side, tilted her head. The stars. He nodded. Before, they were empty, cold, beautiful, but distant. Now, they feel like promises. She leaned her head lightly against his shoulder. That's what the bond is meant to do. It reorients everything. A soft chime rang through the chamber. The door opened to reveal a delegation of ambassadors. Threxian, Valari, Goloth, even a Harkari diplomat, whose species had once refused even to speak to humans. They bowed in unison. Ambassador Ethan Cross, High Consort of Varen. The United Sectors Council awaits your presence. Solara looked to him, smiling. Are you ready? Ethan took a long breath. No, he admitted, then smirked. But when has that ever stopped me? Together they stepped through the threshold. From a mistaken compliment to a cosmic union, Ethan had done what no envoy, no warrior, no conqueror had managed. He made the stars feel close.